Hello again. Thanks for being with me here on the Money Corner. Our format's a little different tonight, and our agenda's a little different. We're going to talk about something that's been in the news in great frequency, collectibles, precious materials, the art world, an area that increasingly investors and investment specialists are turning to as a form of really increasing and adding to your assets. My guests are a lady who owns a prominent gallery in New York City, Helen Fioratti.
How do you do?
Is that pronunciation okay?
Yes, it's perfect.
With the Italian rolling of the R, and Madelon Talley.
Hi,
Helen,
how are you?
Madelon, welcome to the show. I'm glad. It's very nice of you to come out from the city. Helen has expertise in the world of, Helen has expertise in the world of collectibles and antiques and precious items like that. Not only in terms of her own right, but I understand your mother was prominent in this area too.
Yes, she was.
And
she was one of the first, I'd say the first woman in America who dealt in fine arts.
And she had some prominence in placing objects or helping in the decoration of a place like the White House?
That's right.
Is that?
In many museums.
Oh, really? Well, we have to talk about you, not overly concentrate on your mother, but apparently your heritage is good.
Yes.
And Madelon is a person of is a notable person. Madelon recently and still works as an advisor and is on the advisory board of the New York State Pension Fund and also works with the Teachers Retirement Fund. Madelon worked as an advisor to the Controller General, or the Controller of New York State, Regan.
Yes, Ned Regan.
Ned
right.
Regan, right. You know, I'm in the securities business. I'm with Merrill Lynch, and I have a
Yes.
Regan, and we had a Reagan, and a Regan, and all the Regans are well represented. Well, ladies, let me, it was nice for you to come, and let me tell you really why I invited you. Traditionally in the United States, the major investment areas have been real estate, stocks and bonds. And more people are turning to collectibles, precious items, such as we have in the table in front of me. As a matter of fact, Madelon and I were at a conference at the New School in February, an annual conference, which is a very, very fine conference. I would encourage investors and our viewers to attend it. Every year, annually in February, investment specialists come throughout the world to that conference. And for the first time, they had representation there on fine art. I believe Chase Manhattan Bank is contemplating, or may have moved in, to a mutual fund that would purchase art. My firm, Merrill Lynch, did a fund on rare coins, antiquities, Greek coins, not too long ago. So we're getting in a whole new area now of things that people originally acquired, I think mainly to show, but now for appreciation as well. It's part of their wealth. I guess I'm kind of telling your story, Madelon.
Yes, well, I think both Helen and I have discussed this often, that we think there's a lot more than just people doing it for an investment. They want both things, don't you think, Helen?
Yes, certainly. They want the beauty and to live with the pieces, and they are hoping that things will go well.
All right, Helen, that brings me to a point immediately, and it triggers a kind of an anxiety, and they want the beauty, and they want something that will go well, but bringing something like this into your home, which has great intrinsic value, creates a whole security problem immediately.
Well, not immediately, because not everyone is going to know that the picture on the wall or the porcelain on the table is worth thousands if they just see that in a normal house.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it is an immediate problem unless you get a lot of publicity and buy something for millions in a very public way.
I mean, if you buy it from a
If you
shop
buy it,
like
let's say
yours,
from
Lonticare.
if you buy it from me, I'm not going to tell everybody you've got it,
That
so
you
you don't
bought
have
this
to worry
incredible-
about it. If you buy it very publicly at an auction, that's another matter, but a lot of the people who do that want the publicity.
Yeah.
It's a kind of a game that they're playing.
Yeah, I'm
with their
not sure.
peers.
I'm not sure as a tradesperson, an entrepreneur, which you are, as well as a specialist. I hope you'll accept the word entrepreneur as not being a dirty word. I'm not sure if you deal with the general public or not in your gallery.
Yes, we
Do
do.
you?
We deal with the trade, designers, and the general public.
I'll give you a plug now. Your gallery's in New York City on the Upper East Side,
Yes, on 73rd Street.
Near
36
Madison Avenue, I
Yeah,
would assume.
36 East 73rd.
which is kind of that gallery area.
Right.
We do have a very general audience who watches this program, and the purpose of the program really, what is it, Cy Sims says, an educated consumer is his best customer. The purpose of the program is to educate people. That's why people look at it. If one were to walk off the street into the gallery, they would see objects that range in price from where to where?
I'd say from about $50 to a few $100,000.
So big, broad range.
Big broad, yes.
Okay. Now, a few $100s would be represented by what?
I know I have a plaque around 1800 of a Delft, a horse done in tiles that's $300 or something like that. And I have other things, some leather 18th century books, and I have quite a few things that are not expensive.
Yeah, you were good enough to bring some materials out with you. Why don't you talk about a few of them and kind of introduce our audience, my audience, to the show and what we're trying to do tonight?
I just brought a sort of a sampling of the sort of pieces that people buy.
If you want to hand them to me, I'll hold them up so
All
we
right.
can get registration on the camera.
This, for instance, is an adorable painting. It's also a very fine one. I think it's a portrait of the artist's own dog, because I've seen the same hill used in other paintings by him. It's by Jan Wouverman. And
So
he's
that's
a Dutch painter, and it's done on panel, and it's got a period frame. And the whole thing is charming, and I think something that a lot of people would like to have at home. And
this is in a price range of
that's in the
approximately
$30,000 range.
I'll handle it very carefully.
All right.
Okay, let's go on.
Then I brought these because I think it's interesting. Last week there was a sale at one of the auction galleries, and they had one. And the estimate was actually 15 to 18,000 for the pair.
For the pair.
No, for one. And mine are less for the pair. The only thing is that this one has a slight little hairline crack that doesn't show, but with a magnifying glass does show. But I'm also bringing that to show that at a gallery you can buy two for the price of one.
Now, how much would these sell for?
That'd be about 13 for the pair.
$13,000
$13,000
for each.
No, for the pair.
For the pair.
Right. They're very fine kanshi Chinese from the 16th century. They're Ming period.
But what you're trying to show is a comparison to the gallery prices, to the auction prices, because the auctions have just gone so crazy that there one would go for the price of two if you went to a fine gallery.
Now you say that people keep these in the home for appearance sake, as well as having precious items.
Right.
Someone walks in and crushes his cigarette, and the hostess
Well, you
goes
should
through the
put it
floor.
on a shelf or put it
Out of
behind
reach.
glass.
You don't use them for cherries and for fruit salad.
These you shouldn't. They're very, very fine paste. You can. I have lots of bowls that are porcelain, and you can use them. And if they're earthenware, chip more or less won't matter. But these happen to be extremely fine and extremely early.
These are $13,000.
Yes, for the two.
And they're from what period?
16th century Chinese, and they're fully marked on the bottom. They have the kanshi circles, and then the writing of exactly when they
When
were.
you say fully marked, you're getting into the subject of authentication, aren't you? Authenticity.
Yes.
Okay, and
But
we're going to
also-
talk. We're going to talk about that a little
Right.
later at greater length.
And then, should I continue with
Yes,
these
but
other
you
pieces?
let me put this down carefully,
Sure,
please.
don't worry.
Yes.
Okay.
We
My
sling them around.
Oh,
and
really?
We're used to
Well,
it.
you do. My liability is limited.
Right. Now, this is unusual because it's Delft, and I brought it because a lot of people in this part
Delft
of
is Greek.
no, Dutch.
Dutch.
And it's earthenware, and most people associate Delft with blue and white or with manganese. And in this case, we have a very full palette, and it's a Chinese design that was done in the 18th century in Holland, trying to look like a Chinese piece, which at that time was considered the most valuable of valuable, because they had trade with the Orient, and it was much appreciated. This one's particularly fine because it has gold on it, and it has a Kakuman palette, which is a copy of Japanese. It's quite wonderful.
But it doesn't look like Delft.
No,
No,
and that's
it really
why
doesn't.
Now,
this is
what-
for the collector's collector who's gone beyond the blue and white. And not that some blue and white isn't
What
superb.
price range are you in here?
We're
with
in the
this?
$3,000 range. But for
$3,000
that,
range.
you get something that's absolutely fabulous, and I think in Holland would cost a lot more money. In the country of origin, where there are more people who know and appreciate such
Oh,
things.
there's a greater demand in Holland.
Yes, yeah.
I see.
That happens very often, that the country of origin is more expensive, And here in America, things are less expensive.
Does that generate the kind of situation then where a shrewd Dutch buyer would come to the United States to buy?
They do all the time.
Really? And
very
then
much so.
a currency exchange becomes a factor in...
Very much so. That's very interesting. When the dollar goes down, you suddenly find a lot of Europeans coming to buy. Then the dollar goes up and they disappear. During the reign of the Shah of Iran, where there was so much money coming from Iran, all the Persian carpets were a fortune. As soon as he was out and over and the Khomeini came in, the prices plummeted. The thing is with art these days, you can't just buy art if you're thinking of doing it as an investment. You have to also think about what's happening in world politics.
Well, do you, your colleagues, your fellow dealers or gallery owners, then do they adjust their inventory prices, or do they regulate their prices based on what they see as this ebb and flow within the marketplace?
I don't know. You really don't have time to do it. Things happen so quickly.
Too volatile. Yeah.
Yes, and you end up, somebody came to me the other day from England and bought some textiles which are going way up in price. And the tickets had been on the pieces for a while because they'd been put away in drawers where you're supposed to keep them all wrapped up in acid-free paper, and they got real bargains because they...
You had never had a chance
I hadn't
to
had a
reprice
chance
them.
to keep them up to today's market.
You know, your story is so good. We're going to run out of time here, and I want to get Madelon in on the story as a part of our dialogue, and then we'll come back to the other collectibles. I'm very pleased and very grateful that you brought these things.
They're
You're
beautiful.
marvelous
They're
guests.
beautiful.
Madelon, tell us a little about your background and really how you fit into our presentation tonight. You've got a formal training in securities and stocks and bonds.
I have managed money for the Dreyfus Corporation, the state of New York, the Rothschild family, and an assortment of other organizations. And I think in our discussion, Helen and I have always been interested in the concept of value. And when I look at
Graham and Dodd's intrinsic value.
Yes. In other words, what exactly are you looking for? All of us want to find an investment of any kind that is undervalued.
Let me, before you go on, let me work on your credentials for a moment. Madelon is also a published author, and her book on investing is entitled
The Passionate Investor.
The Passionate Investor. Deals only with securities, stocks, and bonds. Don't get carried away.
But the same principles...
And then you'll find that on the bookshelves in some
a
of
big
the
Doubleday
stores
store.
in
Yes,
New
it
York.
has a good business section.
Very good.
But basically, for almost anything, you're really looking at value, and in a way, when you pick antiques, you are picking something that has two qualities. If you pick right, you pick value, and you also pick something that's pleasing and wonderful in your home. So you have more than you have with an equity or a fixed income investment. You have a questionable, you have an uncertain return, but you have something that's beautiful at the same time. And so we've always discussed it from the point of view of where are the values today, and what would you buy if you were looking for values in the antique world. And that's how Helen and I got discussing it, because there are quite a few values. It doesn't sound like when you see these huge auction prices that there are lots of values. But,
well, there are, but the average auction price, you read about the things in the millions, but I think the average piece they sell is $1,000 or $2,000. They sell a lot of $400 pieces, but nobody's going to write about that.
No. But when we've talked about it, you've told me that you think there are a great many values in, for instance,
in sculpture,
French furniture, sculpture,
Renaissance furniture. There are lots of things that still haven't gone to the sky and that people can get in on, and perhaps will go up in the next 5 or 10 years, or even more quickly. I have a client now who told me that he bought Bouguereau and lots of late 19th century pieces, and he bought things for a few thousand. He was offered over $2 million for one painting, and he's refused it so far. And he's now wanting to turn all that stuff over and get Renaissance, because he thinks the same thing is going to happen to that.
Helen, I have to interrupt you for a moment. We're going to pause for an announcement. We'll be back in just a moment. Stay with us and participate in this very interesting discussion, and a very informative discussion. We'll be back in just a moment. Thank you for staying with us, and I hope you were here during the first 15 minutes of the segment. My guests are really fascinating. I'm thoroughly enjoying this show. I'm going to reintroduce them now. Helen Fioratti
Yes.
is a gallery owner, and she has a gallery of fine art and collectibles on East 73rd Street in New York City. The lady in red is Madelon Talley, who is an investment advisor and has had prestigious positions in the investment community as an author, expert on investments, but also has been working with Helen, and really both of them have kind of been collaborating on the concept, which is increasingly popular, of art, precious objects, collectibles, becoming investment items of value, but as Helen, as you very rightfully pointed out, also items of beauty and value in the home. So you get two for the price of one.
Two for.
Yeah, two for sale. Let's go back now. Helen has brought a number of collectibles with her, which kind of illustrate some things about her business. Helen, I'd like to come into this thing of authenticity now, and I understand from you that you deal with museums. Museums come to you. I'm astounded. I read the papers and I read the popular literature, and you'll find museums get duped. The experts get conned as well as anybody else. And my apprehension would be, if I were coming in as a consumer, I'm spending a lot of money, be it $400 or $1,000 or $2,000, or you say we've got bowls here that are worth $13,000. How do I know I'm getting what I'm getting? How do I know that what you represent is what you represent?
Well, first, I think you should go to dealers who have been there a while and who aren't fly-by-night and who have a reputation. And then I think you can find that out by asking around. And the other thing is, I think that you should learn something yourself before you just plunge into the market. You should accustom your eye. You should go to museums. You should read as much as possible. You just don't go and plunk on the first person you meet.
I tried to do a little research in preparation for the show, and I spoke to a person who's affiliated with the American Appraisers Association today. And she made a very interesting point. She said, sometimes our business is so difficult because you'll find a piece, an antique, that has been finished and refinished and repolished and
touched up.
Right. And this can make the authenticity difficult even for the expert.
Well, that's true. The only thing is that if you do buy things that are all gussied up, then you should pay less for it. And you should, I think, get an idea of what prices are. You can do that quite easily by studying auction catalogs, going to various shops, and trying to accustom your eye to quality. I do think you just shouldn't plunge and just buy something, unless you're just buying it because you think it's pretty, the way you would a dress.
Because it's fashionable.
Yes, but then it's not investing, and it's just buying something that you like.
All right, carry us into this area of self-education or consumer education. For example, you said a moment ago, study auction catalogs.
Yes.
What do you mean? What would I look for? Where would I get the auction catalogs? How are they subdivided, where I start to use them as a tool?
Yes, you would go to, let's say you'd go to an exhibit of an auction at Sotheby's.
I hear a name, Christie.
Or Christie's.
Right.
You go there and you want to see, you're very interested in Roman antiquities. And there's an antiquities sale. So you get the catalog, you go around and you see what they say the things are, you see what pleases you, and perhaps you go to one then at Sotheby's a week later. So very often they group the sales. And you might see them also from London. Both auction houses have sales running very close in date to the ones in New York. And then you would compare the prices, you would see what you like, you get an idea of what price range everything is in. And then you would go to museums and try to see similar things.
I'm a novice in this area,
Yeah.
so some of my questions are going to sound naive or simplistic. Can the general public, are the auctions open for the general public, or are they open essentially for buyers, pre-screened?
No, anyone can go anywhere.
And sit and participate or listen?
Absolutely.
But before that, there's the showing period for about a week beforehand at
Right.
each place.
And the auction house is open?
Yes.
Everyone. And also shops are not as a lot of people used to be intimidated when they went into a gallery because they thought everyone was going to pounce on them. There'd be a lady sitting there in a black dress at the desk, and they'd be afraid they'd have to be dressed up to look rich to go in.
Or had to buy something.
Yeah, or have to buy
have to buy it.
I understand you've got a human interest story. One of the tennis pros comes to your place
No, I
and
mean,
buys?
the people that come now, I usually wear pants in the office because I'm always running up and down the stairs. We have a townhouse, and picking up things and lugging things around. It's quite a lot of physical effort involved in it. But we have people coming in shorts, and I had one
You told
client.
me that John McEnroe.
Yeah,
Right.
shorts and sneakers.
Did McEnroe carry his tennis racket as he walked in?
No, but he almost tripped on the front.
Did he come alone or?
No, with his wife. He's married to a movie star, Tatum O'Neal. And most of the people who come in now are complete. I had some very important customers from England. They were wearing shorts, and they were staying at the Carlisle Hotel. So people don't have to feel that they have to dress up or get themselves up.
I want you to know, I walked in the Ritz in London one day for high tea in blue jeans, and they threw me out.
Aha.
So let's not overdo this casualness.
All right, no, but that's different.
Not at a store and not at a gallery.
Not in a store. The gallery will not throw you out. You can come as you like. I had a very important client from California, a billionaire actually, and his wife, her feet hurt, and she had her limousine outside. She left her shoes inside. She came in bare feet. That was unusual.
Listen, for her kind of money, you could have rubbed their bunions for her.
Helen, do people buy when the first time they see things, or do they come back? Do they look?
Some people buy immediately when they're looking for something for a gift, and they're at the last minute, and Christmas is coming, and their wife wants something quick. But most of the time, people write things down. They go home, they measure, they think about it, they ask for a Polaroid, they show their wife, their sister, the art expert that they know around the corner. And then they come back
Now,
again.
you suggest something to me. I know that were you to go and buy insurance on a collectible, which has, by the way, this collectible almost is becoming synonymous with a valuable asset. Sounds like a generic term. You're the insurance company. In order to document your possession, you frequently have to give them a photograph, give them a Polaroid. That's kind of conventional, isn't it?
Yes.
Because I know of a woman who has a business now. She inventories and audits the precious items so that people have a record for the insurance company.
It's good because if something gets stolen or smashed, at least you can prove what you had in the first place. I think it's important.
I'm going to switch and not take the conversation away from you. Madeline and I attended a conference, or we both were at the same conference, not together, independently.
Right.
We didn't know that
We were there.
We were there. At the New School in February. I may have mentioned this the first segment. Quite a good conference. I've been going there 20 years now, I think.
I go every time I can.
Yeah, who's the woman who runs it? She retired now.
Yes, exactly.
The name will come back to me. But it's an excellent conference, kind of sets the tone for the year. For the first time this year, on the panel, the investment panel, they talked about fine art. They had a man who was in the art business. It was very interesting to me because I think of art prices fluctuating so and being influenced by so many factors. I guess before the show we talked about currency values affecting art. The rationale for this mutual fund of fine art would be that they would identify museum collections and they would identify where there was a gap. So for hypothetically now, let's say that the museum had 14 Rembrandts and 4 of a certain period were not in their collection. That museum might ultimately be in the market, so they have an asset now that has a value to the museum with a budget. Madeline, am I tuning into something that you've got some background in terms of this thing of...
I do understand what they're trying to do. I don't think anyone has come up with the way to do an art fund well. There has to be a way because...
Are there some on the market now?
About in the late 60s, early 70s, some people tried to do them.
You know, at Merrill, we did a fund on on antiquities, on
and how
Greek
is it
coins.
done?
I don't know. Well,
Right.
I'll talk to you a little about partnerships and funds like that.
Because you really got your money locked up.
That's exactly
that's the
point.
problem. It's
They're
illiquid.
very illiquid.
It's illiquid.
Very illiquid, and I think you just have to buy it with an attitude, a lot of patience, and a lot of belief.
I mean, I'd rather do it if Helen were going to be part of the fund, or some good people were going to be part of the selection.
On an advisory basis.
You have to be, because I just don't think that most people have got the abilities, and if you're going to put your money into one, you want it, and it's illiquid, you want at least the top people who are going to put
There was a
things into
big
it.
fund done in England, the British Railway Pension Fund, and that over the long run did just as well as most normal investments, but did not
They bought art
did
objects.
not do better. But at the time, they did fine, but
Yes.
not superbly.
No.
But they were lucky that it was the market was going up. But they bought very expensively, and they bought on the advice of the auction house from which they purchased
So
it, which I think was a conflict of
It's a
interest.
conflict.
And I think that was a mistake.
I read, was a prominent advertising agency in New York City, which is now Interpublic, used to be McCann Erickson
Oh,
many
yes,
years
sure.
ago. Well, I believe it was either McCann or Erickson. I'm really reaching back my memory for this. Was a collector of fine art, and I think he owned several Rembrandts. The story, as I recall, was in the late 20s, he bought Rembrandts, early 20s, sold them the latter part of the 20s at an extensive profit, bought them back in the 30s. Now we're going from,
After the Depression,
right,
sure.
at a significant reduction from where he sold them in the previous decade. And my expectation is, of course, we've had comparatively plateauing kind of cycles in the past 20 years, but my expectation is that you could find that kind of fluctuation in the marketplace.
Oh, definitely.
And there, the investor or the purchaser has to be very, very careful.
Well, something happened I just heard, which I thought was amusing. Carter Burden was working for a company, they were investing, and he bought an Andy Warhol plaque with money on it. He paid $400, and he sold it recently for $200,000 or $300,000.
Because of what has happened with
Because what
Warhol.
happened,
Warhol.
that was fluke.
Yeah, that's kind of a fluke,
But he
right.
did better on that, supposedly, than any other thing that the
Investment he
company
made.
had done, which was just something that they expected just to hang in the waiting room.
Yeah,
That
but
was
that's
just a
kind
fluke.
of, that's kind of like, I grew up in an area and I knew Jackson Pollock as a young man, and I bought some
Yes.
because he was a friend,
Right.
and all of a sudden it has enormous value.
Right.
I also think that's somewhat like hitting the lottery.
It
That
is,
is,
You know,
yes.
it's
So
remote.
remote.
Yeah, and I don't think it's really what we're talking about today. I would throw, may I have that one bowl again? I'll handle it very
Yes,
carefully.
look at the glaze. It's so.
Yeah, the glaze is
Well,
lovely.
the color is very,
Yes.
But
very
I
original.
would throw a caution out to a viewer, and I'm impressed. You said that these two bowls are $13,000 for the pair.
yes.
Okay.
It's a bargain.
Yeah, well, I assume because you're buying two, you're getting a discount. I would caution any purchaser that while they buy this and it has beauty and has intrinsic value and great historical significance and artistic significance, if they ran into a liquidity problem, if they needed money and had to sell this on a distressed basis, they could take a very, very significant loss on their purchase.
I don't think so.
We're at the end of the you
oh.
don't think so?
All right, all right.
I hope you'll come back. I mean,
Oh,
it's been
I
fascinating.
could,
Very quickly, I'm trying to squeeze something, one other thing. What is your telephone number, Helen? 212
517-9176.
212 517
9176.
9176. Call the lady if you want to stop by and say hello, but make an appointment, please. She's really marvelous. Thank you for being here. Good
Wonderful
night.
being with you.